Let's begin with this. We are at the Fortune Most Powerful Women Summit. And Michael Cohen from the Trump Organization said that the company employs 57% men and 43% women, but there are more female executives than male within the Trump Organization. How can we see that translate across corporate America so that more women are at the upper echelons?
Well, I think it's incredibly important, and I think companies who aren't prioritizing ensuring that women are at all levels within the organization, and this disproportion of men versus women and gender inequality. Anyone who is thinking in those terms and who's not being very proactive to ensure that their company is being thoughtful about the gender mix is simply going to fall behind. So I think it will be a self-selecting thing. I think in 10 years from now, the companies who haven't evolved will not be the companies that they are today. And I think my father recognized this a long time ago. I wouldn't be the person I am today. I wouldn't have the ambition, the drive, the passion, the commitment to what it is that I'm doing, both for the Trump Organization and for my own brand, if he hadn't encouraged me, emboldened me, given me the confidence that I could do whatever it is that I set my mind to accomplish, if I had the vision, the energy, the passion, and the work ethic to match. So I think really leadership is about action. Leadership is about setting an example, and he's very much done that within the context of the Trump Organization, and that's why my brothers and I are equally at the same level, at the highest ranks within the context of that company.
You started Women Who Work. It's an initiative you push to empower women at all levels to work and to follow their dreams. But Pew found that an increasing amount of American women are staying home, from 23% in 1999 to 29% in 2000, and some of that is in part due to rising childcare costs.
Yeah.
What's your message in this campaign to those women?
Well, so my campaign is about the fact that women are working at all aspects of their life. And I think there's this tendency to talk about working woman, the working woman. There's this caricature of what that looks like. We represent 50% of the population. We're all working at different things. We all have different priorities. And those priorities change through the course of their lives. My priorities today, as a mother of two with one on the way, are different from what they were 10 years ago, and likely will be different in 10 years from now. So I really wanted to create a brand that was celebrating the fact that women are multidimensional, that we're all working really hard at architecting the lives that we want to live and lives that are consistent with our personal priorities. And I do think there's this unfortunate and prevailing depiction of the working woman as wearing a black pantsuit and being solely focused on her professional role, and that's just not true. And hopefully I can be a small part of changing the narrative around what it looks like to be a woman who works today. And that's the purpose of the campaign. It's not to tell people they should work or they shouldn't work.
Right.
It's not to push people in a certain direction. It's to celebrate the fact that we're all figuring it out. We're all working very, very hard. I know, for example, I'm more exhausted on a Monday morning after a weekend home with the kids than I am on a Friday afternoon. And I work really hard during the week.
Yeah.
So it's really about just enabling and supporting women in architecting this ideal life for themselves.
Your father points to you telling him that he has been on the campaign trail, quote, really misunderstood on his views about women. He has said some things about women that have shocked many people. About Carly Fiorina, he said, "Look at that face, would anyone vote for that?" About Megyn Kelly's questioning of him in the first Fox debate, he said, "There was blood coming out of her wherever." Ivanka, what was your reaction to that?
Well, I think a lot of the sensationalism around this was orchestrated largely by the media. Look, my father is very blunt, he's very direct. He is not gender specific in his criticism of people and people that he doesn't particularly like, or people that he does like but thinks they're wrong on a particular issue. So, I don't think that he's gender targeted at all. Like I said, I wouldn't be the person I am today. I wouldn't be a high-level executive within his organization if he felt that way. So he's always supported and encouraged women, and truthfully, he's proven that over decades through his employment practices, through his hiring practices.
What would a President Trump do for women in this country?
He'd be amazing for women in this country. He would be incredible for women in this country, and he's starting to articulate his positions. It's not my place to articulate those for him. I'm not part of the campaign. I'm very busy, and he's kept me very busy working alongside my brothers and running the organization now that he's taking this step in terms of his efforts to try and make this country great again, as he says. So, I'll leave policy to him,
yeah.
But I can speak from my vantage point as a child and also from my vantage point as a colleague and somebody who works for him. He's been an amazing parent. He's given me every opportunity to succeed. He's been loving and supportive. He's pushed me, he's corrected me, he's disciplined me. And I think as a parent now myself, I appreciate how hard that is more than ever before. When I was 15 or 16, I was a little less impressed by how tough he was and how strict he was with us as children. As a parent now, I see just how hard it is to raise children with drive and with passion and with energy, who have a well-set moral compass, and he very much did that for me in his role as a father. And then as an executive, I've seen what an unbelievable leader he is. He's the most formidable negotiator I've ever seen, and I've seen a lot of great negotiators. He is also somebody who really encourages people to achieve at their highest level. He sets very high goals for everyone who works for him and who works with him, but really he helps them raise the bar for themselves in terms of what they want to accomplish.
What are your business goals for Ivanka Trump as a brand, as the business?
Ooh, I have far-reaching goals. I think my goals are less specific and more general now. I want to continue to grow the Trump Organization footprint throughout the world. We have a hotel company, the Trump Hotel Collection, which I'm incredibly proud of, which is now the fastest growing luxury hotel brand. We have many very, very exciting property openings in the year to come here in Washington, D.C. with the old post office building, an iconic building right on Pennsylvania Avenue, in Rio de Janeiro, in Vancouver, and many, many others in the pipeline for the years to come. So I think the opportunity on the hotel side and on the real estate side is huge. And I almost don't want to limit myself by giving a specific goal, but the growth potential there is enormous. In terms of my own business, I really feel like it's in its infancy and I'm just getting started. I'm creating product in many categories that has been very well received, that I'm deeply proud of, and I'm looking forward to other opportunities in other categories and in international markets to grow that brand. Of course, my most important priority, my family, is growing and hopefully will continue to grow.
Congratulations, you are 5 months pregnant.
I'm 5 months pregnant.
With your third.
It's with my third.
Congratulations.
So it's an amazing time and it's an exciting time for me and in my personal life as well. So I feel incredibly blessed, incredibly fortunate that I'm so happy personally and professionally, and I hope that always continues.
You are very good friends with Chelsea Clinton, and she gave a recent interview and she said, quote, "I love Ivanka." And she said that both of your parents running potentially against each other in a general election has not affected your friendship. How do you guys navigate that? Do you not talk politics? Do you talk kids?
It has not been an issue for us. I have great respect for her. She's been a great friend to me. I've been a great friend to her. So, the politics of our parents is not relevant to our friendship.
I asked a lot of the women here at the Fortune Most Powerful Women Summit, and I sat down with a group of them after the Democratic debate last night. I know you watched. What did you make of the debate, and who do you think would be the most formidable candidate against your father, who is leading still in all of the Republican polls?
Well, I thought the debate was excellent. I thought the debate was interesting to watch. So I enjoyed watching. Like I said, I'm a business person, not a politician, so I'll leave politics to other members of the family and the many people who are involved in the race on both sides. So we'll see who emerges.
Ivanka Trump, thank you very much.
Thank you.